All right. Well, welcome to, I think it's the sixth version of these job board roundtables. I am Stephen Rothberg. I'm the founder of College Recruiter. My role has kind of evolved in this to be the person who makes good use of his Zoom account and somewhat moderates the discussion. Today, due to sort of a consensus in the call that we had, I think it was about 5 weeks ago or so, maybe 6 weeks ago now, we're going to talk about whether employers actually want quality over quantity, whether they just say that because they think they should, whether quantity actually is better. I'm expecting there to be a real diversity of opinion here. And I think that's a good thing. I think it'd be really good for people to sort of share what they're seeing, offer their own opinions. And I'm guessing by the end of this, we're probably going to reach the conclusion that there is no one answer. That yes, some employers do want quality and are prepared to pay for it, and some don't, but are saying they do, and some don't and actually aren't asking for it. But let's get into it because what we're seeing at College Recruiter, I'm sure, is different from what a lot of you guys are seeing. Um, because of the number of people on the call and how crazy this conversation could go, what I decided to do is to create like a little bit of an agenda to help guide the discussion. Um, and I've broken it into six parts. And so I'm going to try to take like a little less than 10 minutes per part so we finish at the top of the hour. Um, I'll give you a little bit of a preview about what I have. And hey, if the conversation is better by deviating from the agenda, then by all means. This is not a top down. It was just more of a way of hopefully allowing us to cover as much of this as we can. So the first question, and again, I'll go through all six and then let's get into the discussion. The first one that I have is, are you getting more requests than you did a couple of years ago for less quantity and more quality? The second question, do you believe that you understand what they mean by quality? The third question, is the definition of quality consistent across all those who are requesting it? The fourth, is that definition objective or subjective? The fifth, are those requesting more quality able and willing to pass data to you at a time and in a manner that allows you to take action on their request? And the last one, are they able and willing to pay enough to you so that it makes economic sense to accommodate their requests? In other words, are they asking to receive something of value but unwilling or unable to pay for it? One of the reasons I thought that this topic was so timely was about a week and a half ago. So whatever last Tuesday was, 9 days ago, Chris Foreman, the ex-CEO of Appcast, was a guest on the Chad and Cheese podcast. I think the episode was recorded in late December, just based upon some of the conversation. So he had not quite left Appcast yet, but he did, I thought, a really interesting job of sharing what Appcast is seeing. And I think I can paraphrase Chris's words as basically saying that they had a lot of requests from their employer clients, which skew to very large organizations, like mostly enterprise level, for less quantity and more quality. Chris said that they can provide that, Appcast can provide that. But when they went to those customers and said, hey, if we're going to do that and you're going to be buying fewer applications from us, then we need you to pay more for those applications. To which the customers uniformly said, no thanks. And so Appcast said, no thanks. Um, so maybe we can start off with are we getting more requests for quality over quantity than a couple of years ago? And whoever wants to jump in, please do.
Uh, I, I, I'll start with a big firm yes, I think. So I'm not sure how much I need to add to that, but yeah, I think I've owned my job board for what, probably getting on for 10 years, I guess now. And I think when I took the job board on, and bought it from someone that I was coming from the same specialist sector, and I was kind of worried that what happens when you don't deliver the quality of CVs was my question to the guy that I bought the job board off. And he sort of said,
Mm.
well, to be honest, most of them don't care. And some of them just pay for it anyway, and they accept that it's not going to be great, and they just want the few. So I kind of took it on, and he was correct. But 7, 8 years down the line, then I would argue that that is completely flipped to we're now being sort of put under scrutiny of, well, how many vacancies have you helped us fill? How many sort of unicorn CVs have you sent to us, and how many times have we made placements? So yes, we are being asked definitely for more quality, and well, not so much less quality, but certainly more quality. Yeah,
And Ian, your job board and staffing company, you focus in the gaming industry.
yeah,
Gaming meaning like
video,
playing
yeah,
games
video games.
online, not gambling.
No, not
Yeah,
gambling. The playing type, I suppose, and
yeah.
games development is what they're looking for. So typically the challenge. I mean, even as a recruitment agency, then until very recently, the difficulty in our market has always been it's been very candidate poor for the super duper game developers, C++ programmers, graphics engineers, all the real hard to fill vacancies because it pays less. It's hard work. It's good work. People love working in the games industry, but they get paid less money for doing the same job they can do working for a bank, if you like, using C++ programming and things. So yeah, even for a recruitment agency, it was hard to find people. And for job boards, then it's typically even harder, I suspect. So we're now being asked to find those same kind of rocking horse droppings candidates, and getting paid peanuts to do it. So yes, there's a bit of an imbalance there at times.
Well, don't sign me up.
Um, I would echo what Ian said. I have seen a difference, been running nurses.co.uk for 16 years. And I think it would sort of be not actually requests for more quality, but it's couched in this sort of context, which is there is now technology available to employers and recruitment agencies that allows them to see more clearly what they're getting. And so I have in conversations a cost per hire. I have a cost per hire conversation, how much they've spent on us and how many placements they've had as a result of that spend. So I know that's not, hey Matt, can we now change to a cost per application model? But it is definitely much more scrutiny on where their money is being spent.
I can echo what Ian and Matt have said from college recruiters' perspective. Um, I- we launched our site like I think Abraham Lincoln was president, still, but and we've been around for a long time, and I think we always had employers asking for quality, but I think that number has gone up significantly in the last couple years. Is has anybody not seen that? Maybe that's the flip side of that question is good too. Is anybody just, no, you know what? Our clients aren't asking for a decrease in quantity and an increase in quality.
Yeah, we're not getting any of that. But we're very niche, right? I mean, our board is for people with disabilities. So the quantity is important. We haven't been asked yet to say, hey, we need specific quality. It's very difficult to get, for instance, if somebody in Wisconsin is looking to hire a senior Python programmer, that's a difficult task, especially if you put the label disabled on that. So that hasn't reached us yet.
Interesting. Anybody else want to chime in with requests that they're getting?
Oh, if I may,
Please.
I'm Anana from Oysterlink. We are a hospitality niche job board. So I cannot speak from like years ago because we're established, we're quite young, we're on the market for a year and a half. But for us, it really depends on the role. So if it's a more lower end role, such as a hostess, a barista, a bartender, they don't really care about quality, but they want the quantity because they want to be able to choose, from a number of applicants. But with like higher executive positions, such an executive chef, a general manager, they are so, so, so picky. Like even the best candidates that you send to them, they're not happy with them. They want more. They want that unicorn. And if the skills are matching and the requirements are matching, then they want something else. So it's kind of a mix for the hospitality niche.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Question. So are many of you or your organizations also working as staffing agencies, or do you have recruiters working for you when you say like fill a role like an executive chef or a general manager? I mean, how do you do that if if you have a job board and you're working the job board with the Google algorithms or whatever, however you get your traffic, how do you do that? So are you working, with a recruiting agency or recruiters? Do you have recruiters trying to find those people?
Oh, we have recruiters because we're a part of a larger organization. We're a sister company to a big agency. So they provide the recruiters for us that help out filling those roles. But this is just a white glove service that we're doing now, just to be able to get traction and confidence with the customers. And it's going to remain a white glove service only. We're not going to be able, obviously, to do it for everyone because the hospitality industry is, unless we grow that much, which is fingers crossed, but it's just a white glove service because this industry has insane turnover rates. As you know, it's like 70% per establishment. So we don't do it for everyone. We just do it for the premium customers that ask for that.
Interesting. So,
So
so do we have? I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead,
was just
Steve.
gonna say I just want to like as well he did some bad things, many bad things, but one of the good things he did is he left us with a wonderful quote. Mussolini said we should keep the trains running on time. So I just want to make sure that we get
Yep.
through the questions because I'm guessing that the really good discussion is probably going to come a little bit later after we get a lay of the land here. Anybody have anything else quick that they want to add? Because otherwise I'll move on to the second question. Cool. Okay. So the second one was, do you believe that they understand, they being our customers, our clients, employers or other advertisers, do you believe they understand what they mean when they say quality? Do they have a good definition of that? Or are they just throwing that word out?
I'm happy to lead it off again and say that yeah, I think they do. I think certainly again in our niche, then it's not difficult to know what types of people they are looking for themselves, if you like. They know exactly what they're looking for, and they know what the hard to fill roles are. They've probably been like that for it's not a new thing. These are the same trends that we've been looking at for probably year upon year, 10, 15, even 20 years. So any half decent talent acquisition person, and there are quite a lot of half decent talent acquisition people. Some are less than half decent, but some are half decent. Then they do know what they're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. And just that last comment, but the half decent, I think it's fair to say you find any occupation, right? And you're going to have some people who are great and some people who have a growth opportunity, shall we say. Anybody else want to share about, do we think when a customer comes to us and says that they want a bit more quality, do they know what that actually means? Louise.
I think that some of them do, some of them don't, but they don't all want the same thing by quality. And I think that's part of the problem is that what one person's better quality candidate is absolutely not what someone else wants. So I think if you're selling something which is higher quality applications, you're not selling the same thing to everybody.
I'd
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the third point. So if unless anybody wants to talk more about do they understand? Well, maybe I'll interject here before we get onto that third one, is my experience when I've been talking with the employers, their ad agencies, RPOs, whatever, over the years, is that some of the people that we're working with absolutely know what they mean by quality, kind of like what Ian was saying. And consistent with what Louise is saying, it differs. But one of the things that I've seen is that the larger the organization, the more likely it is that you're dealing with multiple people. And so the person you're talking to might have a very good idea of what she means by quality, but the person who sits in the cube next to her might have a different definition of what they mean by quality. And those can change too. I can remember one time I was talking to with an employer and it was like, I'm exaggerating, but on Monday they had one definition and on Tuesday they had another. They could articulate it well each day, but it changed. So I wonder how much our clients, the organizations, have a good idea versus the people. Anyone want to chime in on, inconsistent definitions within a particular employer or client?
So, yeah, one thing to offer here. So I'm Patrick. I run a company called JobFront. We're a jobs data platform. We work across a bunch of different industries, and we also have no-code job boards and a bunch of other things. We help some companies in tech kickstart their searches for new roles. And one really interesting thing that we've seen in tech is that throughout the life cycle of a search, the definition of quality might change and the goals of the quantity and volume of candidates change. So we've seen this a bunch of times in the past 12 months where companies will kickstart a new search and they will say yes to every candidate. They want to have a call. They want to explore the boundaries of the skill set, the characteristics, the personalities, who's on the market today for this role. And then once they evaluate with that first wave of candidates, then they decide, quote unquote, the definition of quality for this role and what they're prioritizing when they go to make the hire. I also recognize that this varies, from a high volume search or perhaps a low wage search. So it might be really specific in tech. We've just seen this pop up a number of times where there's multiple stages to the life cycle, and that definitional piece of what is quality, what is a high quality candidate changes.
That's an excellent point, and maybe that explains also that experience that I had years ago where it was a different definition. And again, I was exaggerating day to day, but maybe that's exactly what was going on. Somebody started talking, I talked over them, so my apologies. Please jump in.
I actually think I know it's convenient to use the word quality because it's one word, but I actually think we're talking about it's the wrong word to use because as job boards, I think our role is to send, if we possibly can, candidates that match the criteria for each job. So talking about quality doesn't really mean that much because it becomes very subjective. So you may have 20 people that match the criteria, and some, through the hiring process and interviews, turn out to be slightly better for that role than others. But initially, all 20 match the criteria. And so I think what we end up getting bogged down with in this whole conversation about cost per application is where does our role end as a job board? Because if we move to a model which is performance marketing, the attribution point changes. No, so is it on application? No. So is it somebody has applied and they meet all the criteria? Or is it that they've been offered an interview, et cetera, further up and further up the chain until you do what recruitment agencies do, where you get paid on hire? So, and at each stage, it should become more expensive because you're doing the same amount of work, but you're getting recompense for fewer and fewer numbers of people. So I think this whole idea about quality obscures, it muddies the waters a little bit. I think we all really need to define, that's probably the next point, isn't it? What is the definition of quality?
Yeah. So before we get there, actually, and it, none of these questions or sections are stand on their own. I think they all kind of bleed into each other. But, like you were saying, Matt, I can't remember exactly the words you used, but the inconsistency. So maybe we can turn to that as sort of the next section. Is the definition of quality consistent across all of those who are requesting more of it? In other words, if you've got 5 clients that are knocking on your door and they're all telling you, please reduce the quantity that we're getting and increase the quality. Are they all talking the same language? When one employer says quality, is it the same as a second? Um, from college recruiters' perspective, I could say absolutely not. Like what one employer says is quality, another employer would not. One employer might say meets all the basic job description, Another employer might say it's the click to apply rate is good, like their cost per application is low. That might be their definition of quality. Another one might be we offered them an interview, and a lot will say, did we hire them? Um, so again, that's just our perspective, but are others seeing the same thing where it's very definite, different definitions, employer to employer? Or is anybody seeing, no, you know what? It's actually very consistent. Our clients all kind of define it the same way.
I think there's two things, Stephen.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Matt was referring to is targeting.
Yes.
Can you increase or decrease the aperture of targeting of the characteristics of the candidate? And then I think what you're talking about is funnel metrics. So how are you actually tracking the quality of that search, and the quality being defined by funnel metrics? And I don't know if you have time in the conversation for both of those things. I think they're both really interesting because one
Yeah.
is at the macro and was at the micro.
Yeah, no, let's because I do think, Patrick, that's that we're seeing that the industry is seeing that in the marketplace. I think we have some employers just like, especially the high volume ones, talking about it from very much the funnel metrics. And others, I think, is more subjective. And we can, but what are you seeing at Jobfront? Are you seeing the clients that you're working with kind of one or the other, or is it a mixture of both?
We see both. Also, our product at this point is really broad. So we're doing sales tools. We have sales tools. We have recruiting tools. We have job boards. We have data pipelines. So it depends on the nature of the product line that we're talking about. But we see both. What I will say is for the job boards, we do see a lot of focus on funnel metrics right now. And when we got started, we did not see the level of diligence um, uh, um, on funnel metrics in particular. The exact funnel metrics differ for every client. Everybody has a different need. So I don't know if I have general statements on which precise set of KPIs are most relevant, even in different industries. I think it depends on people's baggage and scar tissue, the folks that are using these products. But in terms of the micro, we work on a bunch of searches right now, and I don't want to take us too far off track here, but when we're working on searches, we look at a lot of personality characteristics, and we're looking at the exact details of a candidate's background. And so that's where the targeting piece becomes really, really important. And I think somebody mentioned something earlier in this call where, like, what is our responsibility of job board leaders and job board owners
Hmm.
versus the responsibility of a company to do employer branding and to properly evaluate the candidates that we send to them? And I think that distinction is really important when it comes to targeting.
Yeah. Hey, Brad Boggs, do you mind if I
Yep,
call you out? So Brad is our
go for it.
college recruiters president, and pardon, one of the groups that rolls up to him is what we call customer success, and part of that is campaign management. Um, Brad, when we're hearing from clients, customers about quality, are they is there any consistency to that, or is it just kind of like all over the board? What are you seeing? Because you're closer to it than I am.
Yeah, great question. Um, I would say it fits into different themes. So, to some of the points brought up here, you do have certain customer types that define quality based on similar attributes, like they're looking at the funnel. And these are largely programmatic recruitment advertising agencies. Those who control the advertising, job recruitment, marketing spend for employers typically define quality around those types of funnel metrics. And often it's because they don't get a lot of feedback from the employer by the time they're trying to make advertising decisions. So they
Mhm.
define quality based on, if I spend a lot of money, how many of the clicks do you send me turn to an application? And if I see good metrics, I'm going to send higher bids, more jobs your way, try to spend more money with you, right? And then down funnel, the employer who's actually doing the hiring, the screening, they know what they think of as a quality candidate, somebody who meets the skills, the requirements, you match the education, but they're just, so nobody's wrong. They just, even in the same pipeline, a recruitment marketing and the employer might have their own definitions of quality. And neither one is wrong. They're just trying to accomplish different things trying to get the most qualified candidates downstream. Um, I don't want to take us off topic either, and I don't know if this comes up, but it's interesting to key off this conversation with a Chris Foreman quote at Appcast, because Appcast's real business is all about prioritizing quantity of applications and
Mm,
earning revenue on more applications. And obviously, you want to try to arrive at a place where they're also quality to please your customers, but that is the business. It's not a targeted recruitment business to get you a few candidates that ultimately you want to hire. So that's kind of interesting.
yeah, and in that interview, Chris kind of alluded to that. And I think I'm making up some numbers here, but he might have used something similar. Like if we were selling you, the employer, an application at $40, and your definition of quality would cause us to only send you one application instead of four, we're going to need to charge you more than $160 for that
Right.
one quality application. Maybe we charge you 180 or 190 because some of that risk shifts over to Appcast. And what he shared in that podcast episode is that Appcast experience was that the employers just wouldn't. So like if the
Hmm.
employers were willing to pay, say, $180 for a quality application instead of $40 per application with only one of them being quality, then I
Hmm.
I kind of think Appcast would be fine with that because the increased revenue from the one application would more than offset the decreased revenue. Um, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like what the employers that are using Appcast are buying are applications, completed
Hmm.
applications.
This
And
is
And
yeah, please,
this is
somebody.
this is the key topic because nothing sharpens the focus as much as, right, okay, now how much are you going to charge me for it? We can talk about, definitions and is there a demand and everything, but until you say to somebody, right, the way that we work is that we charge you X, Y, Z pounds for each application. That's when the conversation starts. And the reason we're all having this conversation is because we're in brand new territory here. This is not the charging model that exists. So we've got CPC and we've got duration-based job advertising established. Everybody understands it. So we're talking about something that doesn't exist, and rightly so. I do see this as the future. I do think cost per application has a future, but nobody knows what to charge.
Hmm.
And I mean, there was a client that I had that had used Appcast, a care home. She's a recruitment manager for a big care home group. She said, I used Appcast, but it was too expensive. And I've always hated that word because it's a bit like quality. It's so vague. Well, what's expensive? When you introduced this topic and you said you go to a high-end restaurant and you expect to pay a lot more for your dinner than you would do if you're at a fast food joint, you wouldn't turn around to the waiter when he gives you the bill and say, well, that's expensive. Because it's like, well, in what way? Judged against what? What are we comparing this against? It doesn't exist. So, well, we also
Mhm.
have recruitment agencies that have been charging up to 20% for a placement, for a hire, 20% of the annual salary. So there's that. So we've got these historically what's CPC, duration-based job advertising, and what recruitment agencies charge, but CPA, it's new territory.
Yeah. I would have to add, my experience has been too that this is not just, and I know Matt, you're not saying this, but just to be clear, I don't think that this is an issue just for the CPC and CPA job boards. That those
No,
that sell primarily on a duration basis, I think one of the things that I've heard over and over again is that they also are being evaluated based upon quantity, based upon quality, whatever that might be. At the end of the day, it's about the effective cost per application, if that's
yeah.
how the employer measures it. Or did we hire somebody? Or did we interview five people, or something? Yes. Do you pronounce it Adnana? Yeah. I see you kind of like I've got something. Please.
No, I was like nodding.
Oh,
This is a
okay.
professional deformation from my podcast when I'm listening because I'm agreeing to everything that you guys are saying because we don't charge, guys. This is something that I didn't mention yet. We still didn't start charging and we're still getting all of these requests.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, they're still unhappy if you're
Interesting.
not providing them what they imagined.
Yeah, and just
Mm.
because you don't charge, this is going to be a double negative. My apologies in advance. Just because you don't charge doesn't mean they don't have a cost, right?
I
Because
know.
although they're not paying you, 100 euros or whatever the currency might be, they still have time on their end to process the applications. Um,
Exactly.
so it's like, I mean, sort of borrowing on Matt's example, you walk into a restaurant and the meal is free, but it gives you like food poisoning. It's not worth it. So why don't we move on? Because Matt, you touched on something that I think is we see a big issue with at College Recruiter, and that is the definition of quality. Does that tend to be objective? Like every reasonable person would agree on what that means? Or is it subjective? And one of my favorite ways of describing what I mean by subjective is about 100 years ago, there was a US Supreme Court case dealing with pornography. And in one of the opinions, one of the justices said that you can't define pornography, you know it when you see it. And from talking with some of the talent acquisition folks, it seems like they have that kind of definition, some of them, when it comes to quality. They look at a resume or CV and they make a judgment very subjectively. Is this quality? Is this low quality? Um, where we have other customers, they typically are the higher volume ones where it's very objective. And there's really no subjectivity at all. A recruiter is not looking and saying, is it good? Is it bad? Some of them are using online assessments. Some of them are using scoring systems. Some of them, well, there's a variety of ways that they're assessing that. What the folks that are on the call, for those that are hearing that we want more quality from their clients, um, is it is it all objective? Is it all subjective? Is it a mixture of both? What are you guys seeing?
I think it's a mixture. I think this is Mike. I think it's a mixture of both. I think, a lot depends on who's asking. Like for us, we get for larger companies that have disability offices, within them and disability hiring, they have a different perspective than a compliance officer in the company or TA. I mean, sometimes we deal with all three and it's different. Like the compliance, they just want to post. They don't care. They don't care about anything. They just want to check a box so that if the federal government comes auditing, they're taken care of. Then you have the disability arm who wants to hire, they want people with disabilities, but they want those A+ candidates, right? And then you have the TA who's kind of just out there, as a generalist, like a primary care physician, just kind of like looking around and saying, okay, what could we get that works? So I think it's very subjective.
Yeah, it's what kind of I suppose baffles me a little bit about the job board and the clients that we've got is that uh, we have some clients that are amazingly happy with the service that we give them, and we have some clients that will happily have on for whether it's a discounted trial or even a free trial because we want to get their business and et cetera, et cetera, and we'll deliver what we think is because we can track the results and we'll deliver that back to them and everything else, and we'll deliver what we think is the same sort of quality of service, and yet they're not happy with it. So there's definitely sort of you can't get more subjective than that. It's not to say that you're always going to deliver an identical service to two clients, but certainly there's certainly times where you think, well, why on earth are they over the moon and they're telling us that it's just not worth the money? It's like, wow. And that's about their expectations, I think, more than it is what we are delivering. So yeah, definitely expectations are different, whether that's subjective on quality or not. I don't know.
I think, yeah, I get the same, Ian, as well. I think the problem with this is we will, certainly us, will continue to be judged on really cost per hire. How much does it cost to use us? How many placements have they made? So really, you're just, the charging model might end up becoming a little bit irrelevant. It's still, okay, well, you're expensive because we paid some money. We got some applications that we paid for per application, but we still didn't place anyone. So I think, isn't it going to be impossible to define what quality is ultimately?
Well, I can tell you for some, and Brad kind of alluded to this. I think if our experience at College Recruiters, it largely depends on who the client or the customer is, because some of them have a really, really well-defined definition of quality. It's very objective, and they do a really good job of sharing that with us. Um, and others, I think that they are talking quality because they went to a conference last year and a speaker up on stage said that that was really important. And so they're just repeating that back. Um, I think there's a huge disparity in organization to organization and recruiter to recruiter from what we see. Um, it's interesting, Matt, that you're talking about it sounds like a lot of your clients are essentially holding you accountable to an effective cost per hire. Um, I'm not aware that we see that much of that. It looks like Claire wants to chime in. Please.
I always can't stay quiet for too long, Stephen. You know that.
Oh, well, that's good.
Quick question. In terms of where you guys are at, obviously, I don't run a job board and I don't know how difficult this is. But to your point around getting the quality bar or the quality message from your clients, is there not a duty of care? And I think we talked about this vaguely in the last conversation. Isn't there a duty of care for you as job board owners and founders and business people to set that quality bar and actually showcase what great looks like in terms of an application? And I think from where we're at, the reason why your services are so in demand is because there is a very, very large void between a recruiter and a candidate. And you've got
Mm.
all of this beautiful knowledge, understanding, reach, marketing capability. So shouldn't you be setting the bar as well?
That's a good question. Um, yeah, why don't we sort of add that in? Is any
I
think
think
that yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, I think that it is a good question, and I think a lot has to do with the size of like can a niche or smaller job board do that, right? Could they give certain quality applications? And I say that because the larger job boards and maybe some of the smaller ones who use programmatic or have more of an AI, infusion into their code base, can maybe do that. But the ones out there that aren't doing that basically are working still off of search engine optimization, direct, people coming directly to the sites and stuff. Very difficult then to say, okay, well, this is a quality individual, right? You really can't do that. So I think that within the industry itself, there's a bunch of different levels of quality, if you want to use that term. We're
Yeah.
not standardized.
And definitely folks like, let me know if you see it this way. I kind of think that this is one of those beauty is in the eye of the beholder question, right? What might be, oh, Claire, your dog's adorable. Um,
Mhm.
what dog isn't? But what is quality to one employer is low quality to another. What's quality in one role is low quality in another. And so I've definitely seen some job boards where everybody who registers goes through sort of a standardized assessment, and then the candidates are scored, and then that score is passed along to the employers. And we had a partnership with an organization that did that for a while, and almost none of the employers thought that the way that that job board was assessing candidates was appropriate. Like they just disagreed with the scores. Um, so we should probably move on to the next one, and I think it kind of plays into this as well. Um, for the clients that are requesting more quality, are they passing that data to us? Like if we don't have the data to know if that candidate is of quality, how do we know that the employer deems them to be quality? Or if the employer is saying, um, we judge quality based upon interview offers. If they're not telling us that they're offering interviews to those candidates, how do we know what kinds of candidates to send more of those to that employer and less of the candidates that don't get offers? Um, I can tell you at College Recruiter, it's at best anecdotal. We're not hearing back in any kind of systematic way from the vast majority of our clients that you sent us 100 people last week and these 90 were of low quality and these 10 were of high quality and here's why. Um, is anybody getting that data? Whether it's just very anecdotal like we are or in a very sort of systematic process.
Well, it's all I can say is it's a real mixture for us. I can think about one client in particular, Playground Games, who obviously make Forza Horizon for Microsoft, and I know
Mm,
for a fact that we have regular sort of monthly account management calls with all the clients that we've got. And in the last one with them, it was the kind of annual review, and they were saying, "Yeah, well, you've helped us make 7 hires last year." So they've tracked the response. They've tracked where the CVs are coming from. They've obviously got an ATS system where they've obviously got TAs that are given. They've got the data or they've gone in and found the data. So they actually knew to the exact number how many people we'd helped them to find, which to us is amazing. And I'm not saying it's the only client, but they are very much in the minority. But that data is fantastic for us. It's brilliant. I mean, clearly we get told by others that, well, you've not helped us to hire anybody this year. But usually when you dig in and ask them, well, how do they know? They've not really spent time making sure that the feeds are set up, the sources are set up. They know exactly what's coming through.
Mm.
They're just kind of, I don't know, sticking the finger in the air and hoping for
Yeah.
the best and telling you that
And
you've not been very good. But
when I when
mhm.
so
I
it's
hear
a
that
mixture.
when I hear that, Ian, I don't know if you feel the same. When I hear that, I also have loads of questions in my head popping up, which is, okay, well, how many people from us did you make an offer to, but they rejected it because your pay was too low or, whatever, which
Yeah,
is way beyond our control as a job board.
yeah, yeah.
I think what Claire was saying earlier, I think I kind of agree in that I think, Claire,
Mhm.
if I'm right in interpreting what you're saying, isn't it up to us to set the terms of the debate? We're the ones selling a product here, so we're the ones saying, and this is what the product is. We define. So, for instance, I
Mm.
would definitely define a quality application as being an applicant that is a nurse and is based in the UK,
Yeah.
for instance. Broadly, that person is going to be good for multiple roles. They might not actually be good for the specific job they've applied for, or they might be somebody better for that specific job. But I have had clients say, no, these good candidates, they weren't right for the particular job, but we're going to approach them for other roles. So I think, Claire, if that's what you're saying, I would broadly agree with you.
That
Can
that
I
that's
jump in?
interesting. It's like you're talking about sort of being more proactive and like essentially educating the client. Like
Well,
if we're going
yeah.
to talk quality, here's
We
how we see it.
we we
Maury,
have to,
Yeah.
or else we'll
yeah,
get bogged down in discussing things.
yeah, Maury, please.
So, yeah, I'm like Claire, I can only stay silent for so long. And to Matt's earlier point, I wonder if you're not putting too big a burden on yourselves talking about quality. And I'm curious, are candidates just looking at the number of applicants who are qualified? Is there a viability? I mean, I don't run a job board in many respects. I'm an employer. And if I get a handful of people who are qualified and are at least viable candidates, I'm happy because then at that point it's up to me. But if I get people who, if I want a nurse in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I get a plumber in Wisconsin, I'm not talking quality anymore. Like they're not a quality. This is just a person who doesn't have the basic qualifications. Can I ask of all of you who do run job boards, are you hearing back from employers that they're getting applicants who don't even that aren't viable candidates at all? That never they're top quality, mid
Oh yeah.
quality, but are they qualified? Is that part of the discussion at all?
It- yeah, and one of the issues that I think we're hearing more and more about in the industry, Maury, is candidates that aren't even human. Are they AI bots? Um, we were hiring somebody last year, I think it was last year, and I can say it's fair to say there's a difference of opinion within College Recruiter, but whether the person was at all who they represented themselves to be. Um, that there is an issue with um, hackers, state actors, adopting a different persona to get hired. In this case, the person was looking for like a bookkeeping job. So if you hire somebody as your bookkeeper, and they aren't actually who they say they are, and they're in North Korea or wherever, they have access to your at a minimum
Right.
financial records, maybe your banking,
Yeah,
and that's a
fraudulent
real risk.
candidates. Yeah,
Yeah.
fraudulent candidates are their own category, I think.
Yeah, but it's
Um,
kind of an extreme, right? But if
right.
somebody says that they have 5 years of experience in food service and they only have 5 months, is that a form of fraud? I would say yeah. I mean, it's a spectrum. Um,
It's
and
also there's
yeah,
also the issue of AI applications, right? I read an article that this one person is building this system that can apply to 1,000 jobs at once and customize the resume and build a cover letter all in a click, and it goes out to thousand jobs, or
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
that meet their criteria. How would you deal with any kind of quality with that? You can't.
yeah. For those who aren't familiar with what Mike is referring to, I think the most famous of those organizations is Lazy Apply. And I had a good conversation earlier this week about that very issue. And suffice to say, I don't think there's an easy answer there for our industry. The We've got about 9 minutes left before the top of the hour, and Mussolini wants the train to come into the station on time. So the last item that I thought we should talk about, and this really comes from that Chris Foreman interview on Chat and Cheese, are the employers willing to pay more? When they say they want more quality, are they willing to pay for more quality? The conversation I had earlier this week, I think it'd be fair to sort of boil down the other person's opinion as employers should not have to pay more for quality because we should only be delivering quality. It's table stakes. You go into a restaurant and you buy a chicken dinner, you shouldn't have to pay more for that chicken dinner to be safely prepared. Um, and um, but I don't know if there's a difference between, a fried chicken sandwich at a fast food place and a really fancy chicken dinner in a sit down white tablecloth with candles restaurant. And that to me is that when I think about quality, I'm thinking about that in for that analogy. So, um, is anybody, maybe we can start off with, does anybody have any clients that have actually said to them, if you can deliver this higher quality, we'll pay you more? Maybe we can start there.
We've not
Ian.
seen. Oh, sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead, Ian.
Patrick, go ahead.
Um, quick comment. We've actually not seen that with quality. We've seen that with time to hire.
Hmm.
So we've seen bonus structures with payouts based on time to hire, faster hires, higher payouts.
Interesting. So if Jobfront can get us the candidates that we need in 3 days versus 30 days, time to hire is less. There's less of an opportunity cost with an empty seat, and we're going to reward you for that. Win-win. Those are good clients. Patrick, can you give me the email and phone number for those clients? In fact, do it offline. We don't want to share that with a whole bunch of other people. Is anybody having any other clients that are doing something, similar to what Patrick is saying, or, hey, if the candidate meets these two measures of quality, we'll pay you X, but if they meet these five, we'll pay you Y.
No.
No. But Stephen, I would come back to what you said a moment ago, which is, isn't this what we should have always been doing anyway? And I think we have made changes to our website, okay, to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to eliminate irrelevant candidates. What Maury was saying a minute ago about qualified or unqualified. For some candidates, anyone can say they are a completely irrelevant application for that job. And why should anybody be paying for that, whether it's duration-based advertising spend or per application spend? So it's actually kind of sharpened the focus on us as job board owners to do a better job, I think. So yes, I have some agreement with the argument, which is we shouldn't be paying for crap anyway. So, we're having a conversation about it now that we should have always been having.
The question though, as job board owners, do we have to morph into something that we're currently not to stay in the game? I mean, do we because of this, okay, quality application is, well, the job board owner, you deal with the job board, you deal with the application that you have, you enhance it here, you enhance it there. But do we need to then step up into personal interactions with people, like get that recruiter or do something like that? Is there that limit as an industry that we say, okay, well, we're not going to step over that line because then that's not who we are anymore? Or do we stay within our our lane, so to speak?
Well, there should be a limit, really, shouldn't there? Because of the amount that people are prepared to pay. I mean, obviously when I sit with a staffing agency and I sit with a job board, the two services are to me chalk and cheese. And this is why I try and explain why we can collaborate as two different businesses within the same kind of building. If there's a company that are prepared to pay 10, 15, 20,000 pounds to a recruitment agency, they are going to get and should absolutely get a completely different service to the one that they pay 500 quid for. But I think we're probably having, I mean, the kind of work that Matt's doing there to me is, and I hope he's charging more money and making more money for providing
No,
this.
I mean,
I know he's not.
No, I'd love to be. The expectations have gone up. But we can't charge more. We won't. We don't get the business.
No. I think the problem is that, I mean, we're all sort of regular internet users and avid internet users, and I think the issue we've got is that whether it's video games, whether it's shopping, whether it's any internet usage that you do, a lot of that is now free or very, very cheap for getting a really good service because typically those companies will make money from you as a user, whether it's your data, whether it's flogging you as an advertiser, whatever. And we don't do that in a way. We don't monetize that way. And yet as internet users, that's what we've come to expect. We've come to expect a sort of software solution that just works for very little or nothing. And maybe we're a bit trapped by that because our job boards don't work instantly and every time, and they do cost money. So maybe there's a bit of that as well. Perhaps the expectations are just too high compared to whatever, Amazon.
Yeah. I just saw in the chat that Mike shared his email address. Thank you for that. And it's something I actually was thinking about if anybody wants to share their email address, LinkedIn, URL, whatever, for networking purposes, drop them in. We still have a few minutes. This conversation is also going to get posted to College Recruiter's YouTube channel, youtube.com/College Recruiter. I should have it up by tomorrow. And you can put comments in there too, or whatever. One of the good. Thank you guys for sharing your LinkedIn info. There are only three Stephen Rothbergs on LinkedIn in the entire world. One's in Australia, that's not me, and the other one is a lawyer who's had some ethical issues in New Jersey, also not me. Um, but I think I'd like to share something that we've seen at College Recruiter about the are employers willing to pay more for quality? And I know we have some folks on here from some programmatic companies. One of the things that I've seen and kind of thought about is that we are actually seeing the opposite from some of the programmatics. And what I mean by that is if a programmatic company sends College Recruiter a job along with 50 or 500 other job boards, typically the way that we're being evaluated is on the effective cost per application. There's no real measure in my mind there of quality other than the candidate converted from a click to an application. But so maybe there are some knockout questions that prevent them from applying, but that's a really, really low bar for quality. And to the extent that we deliver higher quality candidates, the ones that are more likely to go from application to interview or interview to hire, we're actually being penalized because we're going to send fewer of those candidates that are of higher quality, but we're only being paid for that minimal level. And so the programmatics, when they only evaluate on an eCPA, and there's no real quality component there, I think they're actually putting a ceiling on the quality that we as an industry can deliver. What I'd love to see are the programmatics having like a two-tiered price structure. You're paid, say $40 for a basic application. Did the candidate convert into an applicant? Yes, you get 40 bucks. But if they also meet this criteria, maybe they have a licensure or they have so many years of experience in the industry, then instead of $40, you get 60. I'm not aware. I think that CV Wallet is doing some of that, but from what I've heard, very few employers are actually willing to pay more for that higher level of quality. Anybody seeing anything else before we leave off in a second here? All right. Well, cool. We're at the top of the hour. I hope that you guys have all found this to be as productive and also enjoyable as I did. I will have a look for a date roughly a month from now and send out an invite. If anybody wants to reach me, linkedin.com/in/Stephen with a V, Rothberg. Pleasure. Cheers
Thanks,
all.
Stephen.
Thank you,
Take care.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.